Hello, this is Michael Rambaran from HVAC Technologies USA. Today we're going to learn about a unit heater schedule and what is important when you're looking at a unit heater schedule in order to select it and price it up. So let's take a look at what we have here. The title is fairly self-explanatory. It's a hot water propeller type unit heater. So right off the bat we know that we're working with hot water. We know it's propeller type. And we know it's a unit heater. So that's easy enough. But when we look at the body of the schedule, what's important in that body? One is a tag. In this case, the tag is UH1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. When you look at a tag, if the tag is numbered, like a UH1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5, we can assume that each unit is tagged an individual number. However, we should check the drawings to make sure that there are 5 units. Some engineers tag units by letter, like UHA, UHB, or some of them tag units by number, UH1, UH2. In this case, it's UH1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we want to make sure we verify the quantity of the units that are on the job. And that's done by really looking at the drawings and making sure you're clear on what's on those drawings. The service. The service of a unit heater typically is placed in an unfinished space. If you look at the service here, it's a vehicle storage. So it usually goes into storage areas, garages, boiler rooms. So a hot water propeller type unit heater, when placed in that unfinished space, is in this case hung from the ceiling because it's a horizontal discharge. But that's a usual location or service for a hot water unit heater or a steam unit heater. The most important criteria that we have to look at when sizing or looking at the schedule is the amount of capacity of that unit heater. Because it goes into an unfinished space, capacity is really the most important feature. That space loses heat at a certain rate, so the unit heater must provide heat in order to match that heat loss or exceed it. So in this case, the MBH, or thousands of BTU, is 52.3. In this case, it's 52,300 BTUs, or British thermal units. The CFM of the unit is also important, but for unit heaters it isn't as important as the capacity. But we should consider CFM because it will affect the flow rate of water and also the heat transfer rate of the coil. This engineer chose to show a throw on the unit. That's an unusual step, but it's important that he put it here, so it was important to him when he was designing the job. Important to a unit heater. We know that a unit heater is really a coil and a fan. What goes through that coil in this case is hot water. Sometimes it's steam. So there's a certain flow of hot water, which is GPM, or gallons per minute. In this case, it's 6.1 GPM. That means the flow rate through that coil is 6.1 gallons per minute. Also important is the entering and leaving water temperature, meaning what is the water temperature when it comes into the unit heater. In this case, it's 180. We will need that for the program when we're sizing up the unit heater or actually selecting it for the performance basis. The leaving water temperature in this case is 160 degrees. So this is referred to as the delta T, the differential in temperature of the water in versus temperature of the water out. The water pressure drop in this case is 0.24 feet. That means it's the pressure drop that's experienced by that water as it flows through the coil. The HP, or horsepower, is the rating of that motor that is provided within the unit heater, and that it is important, although in most cases unit heaters are very fractional horsepower, so they're not as great a concern as when you have large horsepower applications. Maximum mounting height, in this case the engineer is telling the contractor that he must mount this at a maximum height of 12 feet, not above that. The remarks section is important, and a lot of times the model number is shown here under a model or a manufacturer section. In this case, the engineer chose to provide a description of the unit without providing an exact manufacturer. So he tells us it's horizontal. There are two choices for units that are for unit heaters. One is horizontal and one is vertical. And the horizontal describes the airflow through that unit. So, or the discharge airflow. So in this case, it's a horizontal unit. That means the unit's hung from the ceiling and the air is going from left to right or across the unit. It's a horizontal discharge of air. So the model number reflects that. It's UHSB, and then it gives you a size, 84. Now typically the size matches up closely with the MBH. In this case it does not. But we'll explore that when we do the selection process to make sure that we meet the MBH and get either match the size or provide a lower size if we can meet the performance criteria. Other important parts of the schedule are the notes. It is important to realize that there are things that are shown in the notes that we have to provide, as well as the specifications. In this case, the units are based on 60-degree EAT, which is entering air temperature. That means they're calculating the performance of the unit based on a 60-degree entering air temperature that's on the intake side of that coil. The engineer is also instructing the contractor to provide, or the manufacturer to provide, one remote wall thermostat, which is low voltage, that means 24 volts per area. So in this case, we will provide one wall thermostat, and in our program, we'll note that as a field mounted or field installed thermostat, and we'll note that it's low voltage, which is 24. If this said line voltage, then we'd know that it's 115 volt. In the motors for each unit are 115 volt 60 hertz single phase, and each unit heater is provided with a unit mounted disconnect. So when pricing up when selecting the unit or pricing it up, we need to note the features that we have to provide, and when doing the performance rating for that unit in order to match the performance as shown on the schedule, we need to make sure we match the performance data that's shown on the schedule. So those are the important features of a hot water unit heater schedule. This could have also been steam, and in that case we could select it based on steam, but I hope that that's helpful, and we will show the pricing program in a separate module.